IAMP Honors Program. I'm Riley. I'm here today with Bryan Breeser, who has a little bit of the alphabet soup after his name here. I'll go over a little bit of his history, and please, Bryan, correct me or stop me if I mess anything up or anything. I got a lot of this from LinkedIn. I did a little research on you.
Okay.
Um, so the letters after his name, it starts with an RN, which is the registered nurse, goes to the MBA, which is the Master's of Business Administration, followed by the FACHE, which means he's a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. Did I catch them all there? Is that everything?
Sure. Yeah, there you go.
So a little background on Bryan. He got his Bachelor's of Science and his registered nurse degree from Viterbo University in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He then moved to the nursing director role at Gunderson Health Systems in La Crosse, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, nice. I actually worked at Gunderson and St. Francis
Oh, okay. Wow.
while I
So
was going to
Mayo.
school, and yeah, it wasn't Mayo Clinic then, and
Oh, it wasn't. It was just St.
uh,
Francis.
just St. Francis. Yeah.
Okay.
So most of my nursing career at the bedside was spent at Gunderson Lutheran in the ICU, and then I moved over to the clinic, which were at that time were two separate entities. So it was Lutheran Hospital and
Oh,
Gunderson Clinic.
okay.
Spent time at Gunderson Clinic, moved back to the hospital into a management role, and then that's when I got my MBA and then moved to Madison and worked for the University of Wisconsin in Madison. There was a nursing director, and then got recruited to Community Memorial. Worked
Okay.
there as a nursing director, and then at that time they were adding an interventional cardiology program, and I became the service line director for heart and vascular services there.
Gotcha. And is that kind of your role now? So then you moved on, Chief Clinical Services Officer at Aurora Medical Center in Summit, Wisconsin. Is that?
Actually, before I did that, I spent about 5 years at Community Memorial, and then we moved back to Madison. I got recruited at
Oh, okay. That
another
makes sense.
hospital there, St. Mary's Hospital. Was their service line director for cardiology there. And then from there, I got recruited to Aurora back in Oconomowoc. They were building a brand new hospital there,
Mm,
Summit, and I was part of the team that opened that hospital. I was their chief clinical services officer, so I had responsibilities for all the clinical services there, and was part of the leadership team there. So
okay. And that finally now leads us to where you're at now. Is that right?
that's right. And right now I'm up at Marquette, Michigan, at UP Health Systems here in Marquette. It's a LifePoint facility, and I'm senior director for heart and vascular services here.
So can you kind of take me through how you initially became interested in medicine and then maybe into nursing specifically?
Sure. Well, I think I always wanted to work in a hospital, but I was the first kid in any of my immediate family and cousins and whatever to be able to go to college. So I got involved in, always wanted to work in a hospital. And, being a doctor seemed out of the question. It just was like something nobody in my family had ever done. So,
Mhm.
and nursing was not even something that guys did either. So I started out at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, which you're familiar with. Yeah.
Yep.
Started out in business with the thought of getting into hospital administration, but then had a buddy who got into the nursing program at Viterbo College at that time before it was a university. And I was interested in that. And actually, by that time, I was working in a hospital in respiratory therapy. And so then I started my nursing career and started going to school there. Along the way, I also joined the Navy, was a Navy corpsman as a reservist.
Oh,
And
wow.
make some money to get through college. So I did that
Nice.
for a while too. Yeah, but I've worked working my way through school. I worked in respiratory therapy. I worked in a blood gas EKG lab. I worked in an emergency room. I worked in a lock psych unit. Did lots of different things. Got a lot of really cool kind of exposure to a wide variety of different jobs
Yeah.
there. So when I came out of nursing school, I knew I wanted to work in intensive care, and that's really where I spent my time.
Can you kind of walk me through like what what your job roles are as the senior director in service line development?
Sure. So I have responsibility for, from a broad perspective, the quality and types of services that we deliver, the financial aspects of my service line, so profit and loss, that sort of thing. I have responsibility for the physicians. So we're doing some recruiting right now. We've got some recruitment that we're doing, recruiting physicians. And also just basically having the departments that have anything to do with heart and vascular services. So like cardiac cath lab and echocardiography and stress testing and cardiac clinic and stuff like that. So
how much of your job still is kind of nursing versus more administrative kind of stuff?
I really don't have any direct patient care at all now.
Okay.
I haven't for a while. But nursing is what informs, my experience in nursing is what informs me as an administrator, if you will. So that whole experience and the understanding, being able to understand the language and what patients are going through and everything else. And, when we're talking about, trying to grow our program and do outreach and that sort of thing, being able to speak to the clinicians in a language that they understand and understanding what they're telling me, also really important.
Could you go through like maybe a day in the life of your current kind of career, like your service line development?
So a day in the life. So like today, I had about 4 different Zoom meetings because we're not meeting face to face now with all the COVID stuff. Had a couple of Zoom meetings with outreach locations. So in one location, we're just developing some new services there. So talking with the team there. In another location, we've had an established presence for quite a while, and just had a physician that actually was out for a while because she was for her own health issues and just getting back. So kind of getting that back running. I had a meeting with a vendor talking about some new software for some of our imaging equipment. And let's see, there was another one. Oh, I had a meeting with our partners at Duke Health. We're a Duke affiliate. So if you're familiar with the Duke Health system out in North Carolina.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask if it was the Duke I was thinking of. Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah,
nice.
Then just had a meeting with my quality team, talking about some new changes we're doing with some of the different metrics that we're watching.
Cool.
So there's tons of jobs that you can have in healthcare that aren't nurses or doctors. So we've got echo techs, echocardiographic techs that are very highly trained, great pay, that basically do an ultrasound of your heart and have that skill level. Stress test technicians, nuclear technicians that do administer the nuclear tracers as we do stress testing. Tons and tons of things, even straightforward things like if you're really interested in mechanical stuff, biomedical engineer, the guys who keep all of our equipment running, or the plant engineers who keep all of the heating and air conditioning going in the whole facility. It's a huge job, and it's extremely technical because everything in healthcare is highly regulated. So if you're a heating and air conditioning tech, you know that you have to keep the humidity between a certain very narrow range and the temperature between a very narrow range, and it's very technical.
Yeah. That's really cool insight, because I think a big part of my role personally, and just the AMP Honors program in general, is just to kind of try to capture all of those different roles within healthcare that aren't just what everyone hears about with the doctors and nurses. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So taking it back to nursing a little bit, back to your nursing days, I should say, do you have like a favorite and a least favorite part of it?
I think it's always, I always very much enjoy taking care of patients. There's a lot of days in my administrative role that I think I wish I was back taking care of patients, because where you really got the most, I guess, reward, or you felt the most valued rather than, telling people what to do. It's
right. Yeah.
Doing it the way you want to do it. So I would say that's probably the most favorite thing. The least favorite thing now is nursing's got probably more administrative roles, more administrative tasks that they have to do, more so than even I did back when I was doing bedside nursing. But it's all part of, documenting and making sure that, you can support the care that was given, and the charges that are charged, and the interventions that you did are well documented, and everything else. So.
Yeah, for sure. And then kind of the same thing, could you take me through like maybe a favorite part and a least favorite part of what you do now?
So, now I get to affect healthcare on a much broader scale. So,
Yeah.
especially up here in the UP, that there is no cardiac services other than what we provide. And the UP is a big place. So,
Hmm.
if you think about the UP, it's if you're in a car going 60 miles an hour, it'll take you 6 hours to get across the UP from east to west, and it'll take you about
Wow.
3 hours from north to south. So we're pretty well centrally located. Our furthest away office is 3 hours away.
Mm.
So, being able to bring good cardiac care to people that need it and deserve it, and don't have to drive, hundreds of miles, is very rewarding. I think it's also rewarding just to work with physicians and staff and nurses in there and caring for patients. And I do get to see patients. I round on patients. Before COVID, we rounded on patients every day, and just as an administrator, to see how things were going, how their experience was, if they've got any people they want to recognize, or any complaints they want to make, or anything like that. So I still would get to see some patients. Yeah.
Mm.
From a least favorite perspective, though, I think it's just all the economic constraints that we have now in healthcare. That um, healthcare is expensive, so you have to pay attention to how you're utilizing your resources, and how much staff you have on for a given amount of work, and all the stuff like that. So
Do you have any particular cases or memories kind of just throughout your career in the healthcare that will always stick with you that you'll never forget or anything like that?
I think from an administrative perspective, one of my favorite things most recently was being able to be part of opening a brand new hospital
Mm.
in Summit. Yeah, that was really cool. A nice
Yeah.
experience. You don't get a chance to do that very often, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
And I've
definitely not.
had the experience of opening, a couple of different new programs, so including buildings, stuff like that. But this was a whole brand new hospital, so that was really cool. Well, I think one of the great things about nursing is you can do so many different things with it.
Mhm.
It is a very versatile degree. You get a little patient care experience under your belt, and maybe shift work in a hospital isn't your deal anymore. For me, it was awesome when I first started. I loved working in intensive care. I liked the intensity of it all. I loved what I did. It was very technical. But when you start having kids and you start working shifts, and try to rearrange that, it got to be a little bit more of a challenge. And so
Mhm.
that led me to look into other things. And from that nursing degree, you can do a ton of different things. And whether you want to work in sales, if you want to work in administration, if you want to become a nurse anesthetist, if
Mm.
you want to go on to school and be a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant, or I know a number of physicians who've gone on from nursing degrees to take medical, be a medical.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you said that too. Do you have any kind of maybe words of advice for someone that's either interested in nursing or interested in like being an executive in the healthcare field, or maybe both?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. If you're interested in nursing or anything in healthcare, do what you can to start working in healthcare. So, even if you're in high school, there are things that, you could volunteer or anything. But I think,
Mhm.
um, especially if you wanted to go into something clinical, find a role that you can start doing in healthcare and start getting some exposure to that. I think it helps you tremendously. It'll provide some clarity about what kind of a caregiver or what kind of a career you want to pursue.
Mhm.
Um, and if you want to get into an administrative role within healthcare, I still think that experience somehow clinically, whether it's as a nursing assistant, or a phlebotomist, or an EKG tech, or any of those more kind of entry level kinds of things while you're going to school. The hours are typically flexible. You can have weekend hours so that you can work while you're going to school. Certainly, that's what I did. I worked my way through school.
Mhm.
Um, and it gives you a foundation of really understanding what healthcare is all about. So it makes you a better informed administrator, I think. So, yeah.
So is it really common for executives like yourself to have worked kind of as a nurse or like with patients previously, or is it kind of split?
I would say it's probably split. But it is fairly common that administrative people have some sort of clinical background or some sort of clinical experience.
Yeah.
That's, not everybody, but for the most part, they've all, the people I work with, for the most part, I have one of our executives hasn't, but he's been working in healthcare for a long time, so he certainly understands it. Yeah.
Mm.
But I think, being able to have had that clinical background really puts everything else into context. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was fascinating to learn about your career and your career path and your perspective on a lot of things. So thanks again for sitting down.
Sure. All right.
Have a good night.
You too. Talk to you later.
Thanks.